All right, so now what I want to do is have a better understanding of how to use foreign keys and many-to-many fields. And I'm going to do this by saying class student, and I'm not going to write out everything, but I want to think through what could be a foreign key and what could be a many-to-many field. So a student could be in a number of courses, right? So courses, what are those courses that they're in? Well, I already put an S there. So right off the bat, you should be like, oh, well, this should be many-to-many, because it stands to reason that not only will this student be in many different courses, but the courses themselves should have many different students. Let's think of this actually a little bit different by actually putting a class called course and put in students in here and actually add many-to-many inside of the course as well. Now, these are actually roughly the same thing, right? We've got students and courses, many students, many courses. That's really, really common of a thing to do. Now, does that mean that I actually have to have this relationship written on both of these things? No. In fact, there's like this hidden relationship to it. So we don't see it on the field itself, but we do have, me student and then dot courses, or rather course set dot all. That is actually that reverse relationship because there's this many-to-many field in here, right? So it actually gives me that option. Now, another thing, though, is I also have grades, right? So the student themselves has grades. And yet again, you might be like, oh, well, let me put a many-to-many here to some sort of grade model, right? Well, yet again, the course itself could have grades, and that, again, could also be a many-to-many. But this actually doesn't make a whole lot of sense because what we would probably want to have is a course grade. So I would actually have another class saying course grade. And what this would then do is it would associate to one user because the student themselves would be the one who's doing this. So this is going to be a foreign key to the student. And then it's going to reference the course as well, which would be a foreign key to the actual course itself. So now I can actually get rid of this, and a hidden attribute that we don't see necessarily, but it is related, would be the actual grades. So then I could actually do the course, like a course object dot course grade set dot all, and that would actually give me all of those grades for that course grade. Also, though, I can actually get rid of this as well and say student dot course grade underscore set dot all as well, because there is that foreign key, right? So with this actually hopefully illustrates this a little bit better, that the student themselves don't actually have to have any fields declared on here that they may or may not be a part of. That being said, though, there would be something that would kind of make sense that the student would have a foreign key on, and that is a parent. So the student's actual parent, they would have a name and so on, would have, now we would say parent equals to a foreign key of the parent, or really it would be mother equals to foreign key of the parent, and then father equals to foreign key of the parent, right? And of course, we all have biological mother and father, so let's not argue about step parents and all that stuff. That's not really the point. But we now see that there's now this foreign key relationship again to that parent, which they also would have a foreign key relationship to the student. So then it would be, parent obj and dot student set dot all, right? So student set would actually be all of their children, not just the one, right? Another way to think about this would be to say we actually would potentially change the related name, or in this case, we would definitely have to because there's two of the same foreign key. The related name in this case would be mother, and then, of course, the related name in this case would be father. So now it would be student.father and student.mother, right? So, of course, those related names are very similar, but then the other part of this would be the parent itself could access those students still, depending on what the student actually ends up being. But the fact that we have two of the exact same class means that we actually do have to add in a related name of some kind. But this actually shows us how these foreign keys should end up working, or at least hopefully helps us think about it, where many-to-many fields usually mean that like something like students, each course can have many students, many courses can have many students can have many courses, and thus they can be kind of interchanged there. And then also with the grades and so on. Now, of course, you could put this into as attendance as well. And what this would end up doing is then a date time object. And this was just a date time, field or something along those lines. And then the course itself would then have a huge thing of attendance items, right? So course, attendance and so on, set.all. So that is the general reference on what's going on here with foreign keys and also many-to-many fields. So I do encourage you to try this out. In fact, this would be a good example of something that you could go and try and build in a new project on your own just with these foreign keys, just so you get that really down pat. Because it's actually critical to how our playlists work, which is why I try to make it actually a little confusing, because it is a confusing topic that you should dive a lot more into. But that being said, there is still some more reference that we can use, and that is how to actually add and remove things or set things in a many-to-many field. First of all, we grab an object itself, and then we can add the original object. So like in this case, playlist A is another object. So let's actually reference that. So playlist A would be equals to playlist.objects.first, right? So what videos.add, this is our many-to-many field. This would actually add that into the playlist. And then to remove it would be just like that. That's a little bit different than a foreign key. A foreign key, we actually set it directly. So the foreign key would be just simply the playlist a.video equals to video A, and then playlist a.save. Right, so that's actually how we would set it, or to none. But with query sets, or many-to-many fields rather, we use query sets instead. So that's why we have to do add and remove. And then set, we can set an entire query set, or like what we saw before, which was actual video objects as well, and so on. This should actually say video QS. And then we'd come through in here. And then we can also clear these things out with just .clear. So we don't need a query set at all. This would actually remove everything that's in there. And then the final thing would be, how do we actually get all of those items in there, which is just .all. We could actually call and get the query set items of what's inside of those videos. So these are really useful commands, and of course we'll be using them quite a bit. We've already used some of them, but overall we need this foundation to be able to move forward on using playlists in general. So let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, let's keep going.